Your reasons for listening to this show, well, those are your own. But just keep in mind that the views, information, or opinions expressed on the Tuddle Daily Podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of our sponsors. Yeah, it's called free speech, people. Nobody's forcing you to listen.
Get ready for your daily dose of Tuddle.
The all-time greatest intern/producer we've ever had, of course, Tuddle. Tuddle in Florida.
From the Hobo Fish Camp, it's the Tuddle Daily Podcast.
No wonder nobody likes you, Tuddle. Everything's a goddamn debate.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Tuddle Daily Podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed your day so far. A couple of ways you can get a hold of me. There's a lot of topics I'm going to get into that I would love to get your feedback. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can email me, tuddle@gmail.com. That's Tuddle with two Ds, TUDDLE@gmail.com. Or you can leave me a voicemail, 407-270-3044. And before I get into my first topic, if you haven't already done it, go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Tuddle. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell button, because when you hit that bell button, you're going to get alerted to any time I go live or put up any brand new content. First story I wanted to get into is this guy, Ben Frazier, African-American gentleman. He was arrested today because our governor here in the Sunshine State, Ron Desantis, held a press conference. And a lot of people don't realize this. The state government, they think, oh, these people are a bunch of sheep. They don't know that there's something called the Sunshine Law here in Florida, which is a great law. And I think every state should be this way. But the Sunshine Law states, Florida's government in the Sunshine Law provides a right of access to governmental proceedings at both the state and local levels. It applies to any gathering of two or more members of the same board to discuss some matter which foresee albeit come before that board for action. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, this was not a government-sanctioned event. But I don't understand what Ron DeSantis has to be afraid of. This guy was polite. He was not violent. He was not threatening in any matter. And this African-American gentleman was arrested today because he wanted to be there at the press conference. Now, where I do have a problem is, and this is not a racial thing, not a class thing, maybe a class thing, but, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the January 6th insurrection that happened at the Capitol. And those people were violent as hell. Very, very violent. A couple of cops got really injured. And you didn't see anybody getting arrested really that much. Now, they are going back and getting those people, but they deserve to be arrested. Why? So, is there a double standard here? I'm just asking. Because Ron DeSantis is a puppet of the Trump playbook. And I know a lot of people. Look, I hate all politicians. If this was a liberal that would have did the same exact thing, I would have been pissed. And I'd be saying the same exact thing about them. Nikki Fried, she's running. If she did the same exact thing, if she wins, oh yeah, I would be pissed off and I would rail against her as well too. But you got to admit that it is a little bit of a double standard that the right wing, they can't handle it. They can't handle the criticism, and they had people arrested. And shame on the cops. Shame on the cops for going in there and arresting this African-American gentleman today. Because if I was a cop, I know, these guys are really, really good. I'm not bashing cops and stuff. But you're there to protect and serve. Serve the community. Yeah, maybe the governor, he is your boss. I'm sure DeSantis could get you fired if he wanted to. But I don't know if I could have arrested this guy. He did absolutely nothing wrong. And his name is Ben Frazier.
I think that's the polite thing to do, but we're happy to interact with you guys. But
I really hate, and I know this woman was just doing her job, but I hate when people are doing something really, really wrong. They come out and they're just overly cheerful, thinking that it's going to make what you're doing right. It's not. It's a little condescending because you're sounding fake as hell, woman. The way that, we would love to have you here. Cheerio.
They've asked you to leave.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
This is a public building,
Sure.
and we don't intend on moving.
Sure, okay.
By the way, did you hear how polite? Like, the guy was not being threatening. He said, I have no intentions of leaving. He didn't, like, raise his voice. And I love how the woman, okay. Yes, these cops are about to put you in cuffs.
Thank you for the conversation. But again, we'd like to start our press.
See, if I would have been there, I would have just gotten more mad and more mad. Because she is definitely being condescending. Oh, I appreciate the conversation, sir.
Go ahead,
We
please.
do that
Please feel
until you
free.
guys leave after asking the
Please,
request.
go ahead with your news conference.
But we can't do that until we've asked you to leave.
Why not? Why not? Sunshine Law. These people should have been out there reciting it by heart. Because isn't this exactly what the Sunshine Law is about? I mean, what does Ron DeSantis have to hide? What is he scared of? You know, Trump used to do the same thing. But, I mean, those were not government meetings. Those were like pep rallies for number 45. People would stand up all the time. Trump would threaten them. Somebody punched that son of a bitch in the face. I know I heard him say that before. And they used to do the same thing. It is the right-wing Republic. You know what? In general, politicians. Shouldn't we want a president, a governor, any of the a senator to face the fire? Don't run from it. Don't kick people out. If Ron DeSantis was smart, he would get up, kind of have a town hall meeting, and take questions from the public. Because all the media that's there, I'm sure that they were vetted. Governor DeSantis' team was like, all right, is this reporter going to bust my balls, going to ask a question that I don't like? No, they're not letting those type of people in there. That's why Ron DeSantis doesn't want Ben Frazier anywhere near this press conference.
So why
do we have to leave? It's a public building.
Because we're having a private press
Then
conference.
a private press conference with a public official?
I mean, the guy made some great points. It's a public building with a public official, but it's a private press conference. And I think this lady does say, well, you'll be able to see it later on. Yeah, because it's a bunch of reporters that aren't going to ask the tough questions.
Allow the members of the public to come to the
Excuse
press
me,
conference.
ma'am. Let me just get this straight.
Once again, Ben Frazier is very polite. Excuse me, ma'am. If that would have been me, I would have called her a fat bitch right to her face.
Yeah.
You're having a private news conference with a public official on
We don't
public
allow members of
property.
the public to come to our press conferences. This is for members of the media with the elected officials.
In other words, DeSantis is scared. He's scared. And he just wants to get reelected. He's only going to be there for 2 years, by the way. And I hope he's not one of those politicians that are like, yeah, I'm still going to be the governor, but I'm going to run for president. No. No. I think if you hold an elected spot, like being a governor or a senator, and you want to run for president, you got to give that up. You got to show a little bit of confidence. Because that's all this is. It's a job interview. And if he doesn't get the presidency, he's going to go back and be the governor of the Sunshine State. I mean, I don't understand why you guys are not more upset about this. And I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be upset. A lot of people that are supporters of mine that listen to my show every single day, oh, they're going to be mad as hell. And they'll probably stop listening to it. But like I said, I would say this about any politician. Liberal, independent, right-wing, conservative. That's how I feel. I don't support any political party. I think Joe Biden, I almost said Joe Budden like the rapper. But Joe Biden, yeah, he's a scumbag. Do I think he's competent? No. I thought, look, I don't think we've had a great president since Bill Clinton. Seriously. Bill Clinton got a lot of stuff done. But he also had his demons as well, too. But guess what? The guy could talk his way out of anything.
They have the conversation. If we want to have a separate conversation that you guys want to have.
But here's my question to you. Here's my question.
What about the press conferences
What
that he's
about-
had at schools where he's had the whole school there and other places where
But
he's had his
those,
people
for
around
security
for
reasons,
him?
we know who those people are.
But as bad as the school shootings are, that's a little bit of a BS comment. Because you don't know if there's some little bastard kid that's mad. He's like, oh, man, I'm going to leave my mark. I'm going to become famous. I'm going to be bigger than Columbine. I'm going to go to the school and shoot it up while the governor is there. No. So don't give me that BS that, oh, it's safer at a school. They've all been vet. No. Nope, not buying it.
So there's a question regarding security?
There is.
Would you like my ID?
Security. So if we can move everyone out of the press.
Look, this guy's been nothing but polite. This woman is being rude as hell without being blatantly rude. You got to read between the lines. She just blew him off. She said, okay, we're going to start our press conference. Have a nice day. Oh, my God. And this guy kept it together. I got to give this guy credit.
Why am I being handcuffed?
Now, this is audio of Ben Frazier being having handcuffs, put on him, still not being combative, being very polite, asking questions. Why am I being arrested? And then this woman, she's still being condescending while he's got cuffs on.
I have not done anything to anyone. Why am I being handcuffed?
Trust me, this is not the last of this news story that you're going to hear about. Because I'm telling you, the ACLU is going to be on this. Because this guy's civil liberties were denied. He was not combative. He was not threatening. And he was just exercising his First Amendment right. And he got arrested. And if any of this sticks, and he does go to jail, which I think he did, if he's got any type of criminal record, you guys need to be a lot more upset. I'm not saying go out and commit crimes, burn a city down or whatever. Don't do it. But you guys need to march. You guys need to do something about this because this is not fair at all.
Why am I being handcuffed? Why am I being handcuffed, Sergeant Terrell?
Let me hammer this home once again. Not being combative. He called him Sergeant and by his last name. Very, very polite. I'm telling you right now, if you're mad at me for talking about this and taking this stance just because you're a Republican or a conservative or you support Ron DeSantis, I'll say it right now. If you don't have a problem with this, you are un-American. And you know what? I love how the conservatives and the Republicans, well, a lot of politicians use that as a crutch. You're un-American because you don't stand up for the flag. You don't stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I do it every time. I love America. It's respectful. I stand up, take a hat off, put my hand on my heart. I'm very, very respectful when it comes to that. But that was the way that I was raised. My dad always told me that. Hell, if we were at a sporting event and somebody didn't take their hat, my dad would say something. He definitely would say something. But it's a person's right. And a lot of the conservatives, a lot of the Republicans, they will do that. They will call somebody out. And I'm calling out Ron DeSantis right now. Even if you're a supporter of his and you don't have a problem with this, I'm saying it right now. You're un-American.
Right now. We got it. Come on, let's walk.
I asked a question. Why am I being handcuffed? Am I being arrested? Am I being arrested?
And look, also, the cops aren't saying anything because there's a lot of cameras around. But a cop's supposed to tell you if you're being arrested or being detained. I didn't hear either or. I didn't hear, sir, you're being detained. Sir, you're being arrested. You didn't see that because a lot of people are covering their ass. Even the cops knew that this was wrong. But they were just in their job, and I can't be mad at them. I really cannot be mad at them because they're in a tough spot. Governor's there. Like I said, governor could probably get him fired if he wanted to, even though he supports law enforcement. Why? I just don't get this. Why? This is such a bad look for Ron DeSantis. And I think this is going to be something that is going to hurt him in the end.
I'm asking a question.
All right, I stand corrected. Because I do, want to hear the audio for the first time. I usually listen just a little bit to see what it's about. My producer, Vulture, sends me a lot of these as well, too. But I like to get my first reactions. But I was wrong. The cop did say you're being detained. Because I really think he needed to. I think he kind of had to. Because even the cop knew that it was going to be a bad look if he didn't say something. Man, this is just a sad story all around. And I'm not trying to get political with this, but like I said, even if you support Ron DeSantis or you support the Republican Party, anything, I don't even care what politician it is. If you support a politician that will allow something like this happen at one of his press conferences, you need to be furious. All right, guys, welcome back to the Tuddle Daily Podcast. Really, really excited about this one because I'm a big historian. I like to talk about military conflicts as well. But my next guest, I also want to talk about cooperation, teamwork with my next guest, Captain Sayre Payne, one of the most badass names that I've ever heard in a really, really long time. How are you today, Captain Payne?
I'm doing well, thanks. And yeah, please call me Sayre.
Okay, I'm just look, being respectful.
No, hey, I appreciate that. But yeah, those days are behind me because I did get out. But yeah,
are you always a captain? If you're once a captain, can you always like rock that title?
Well, the in reality, no, unless you're retired, and or pretty much retirement. Which you can have medical retirement. That's a whole different thing. But it's actually the way it works. You do your active duty time as an officer, which I had 4 years. And then you do another 4 years on the call-up roster, essentially, which I didn't do anything for. And then after that time, it's what's called you resign your commission. And so I guess theoretically, if I were to go in today, if World War III kicks out, I would have to go back in as a second lieutenant.
Man. So you got to like work your way back up again then.
Well, yeah, but if World War III were to happen, I think we'd be in that scenario where people are coming in as colonels and stuff, because we're like, shit is
just pulling everything.
Yeah,
exactly. Before we get into the interview, Sayre, tell people a little bit about yourself and the content that you're putting out and how people can find any of the stuff that you're putting out.
Sure. I'm on a podcast with Preston Stewart. If you're into military history, you may have seen him on TikTok, actually. Press Stu is his name, and he does a lot of awesome snippets on military history. But our podcast, and I served with him in Afghanistan. He's a West Point graduate, field artillery officer.
Oh, he's a big swinging dick then.
Yeah,
West
Point. He's a West Pointer, and he's a humble guy. You wouldn't know it by talking to him, and that's what we all like about him. And I'm an Ohio State grad, did ROTC there in the GWAT years, graduated in 2008. And so we served in Afghanistan together, myself as an infantry platoon leader, Kandahar, and then he is a fire support officer calling in fires and stuff, like the headquarters, if you will. But the podcast that we do it's conversational military history, we like to call it, because we essentially just shoot the shit with some of these humble folk that you live around, and it's one of those things that's hard to get the conversations out. We know how Vietnam went, and kind of awkward talking about it. I feel like as a kid, I was born in '85, so kind of kid of the '90s. But we kind of been there, done that, and so we've had. Go ahead.
Sayre, I got to back up there a little bit, though. I talk about this all the time. I don't think today's students, I know that I'm sounding like the old man, like, get off my lawn, but, like, they don't teach history anymore. And I'm fascinated with history. I think history is very, very important because it helps us learn from our ancestors' mistakes. Right. I use a great example of, back on 9/11 on United 93, everybody was like, oh, they're going to land the plane. They're going to negotiate. They're going to give demands, and we're going to be able to go. And when they saw that the planes were being flown into buildings, the Pentagon and stuff like that, everybody knows now you cannot just think that they're going to land the plane safely. You got to fight back. And that's a part of history because people learn from the mistakes in the past.
Correct. I do agree that it's important, and it helps put what I think what is like about history, because we always, it repeats itself. Everyone always says that, but it tends to be true because we're all humans. And so I think it gives you perspective on the now, especially like talking to, we had it rough in Afghanistan, sure, but it's all relative. Talking to Vietnam guys that been doing that thing. I mean, man, that sounds wild. We had another guy that was like, he's almost 100 years old. And he was on D-Day, like in the Ranger Battalion.
Wow.
He climbed Point du Hoc, all of those things. Ended up retiring as a major general. He was in Korea and Vietnam. But hearing how hard they had it, I think, puts things in perspective of, because I'm in the camp of we have it good now. I think it's excellent time to be a human being. I really do. All things considered, there's always going to be bad things, but like the fact that, let's just talk about the World War II guy that was 100. I mean, he grew up in an era still. I mean, it was still the Great Depression when he came up, and
That was a different breed, though, wasn't it? Though, I mean,
well, grew up hard.
yeah. I really do agree with you on that one, because there were a lot of people like back when World War II happened, and you're more of the aficionado on war history and stuff. It was the whole country came together. They did their part. They went and they built tanks, airplanes, all that stuff. Even, everybody did their part. And then people were even just volunteering at 18. Hell, there were probably some kids that weren't even 18 that lied about their age just to be able to go and fight for the country.
It would have been a horrible time. I mean, their entire childhood was spent in the Depression. And then this mass enlistment where every pretty much able-bodied male was going off to the unknown, like unknown. World War I was horrible. And then
but
World
that
War
was the
II
beginning
happened.
of trench warfare. That was a completely different type of war, though, wasn't it?
But what I'm saying is they already sort of that was within recent memory, World War I.
Yeah.
And so they just came off of that, essentially, rolling just a decade, and you go right into a depression. I'm just saying these people had a really tough life. And then as soon as they come of age, they're going off getting killed in the Pacific. I mean, here's my counterpoint, and I guess reason to support why I think we have it good now as compared to that, because 500,000 people died back then. There were war bonds. You had to ration. You couldn't just get certain things at the grocery. Hell, you got guilted into loaning the government money to try to fund this. And let's say you never, a woman that didn't plan on working outside the home is now working outside the home to just do her part.
Yep.
Because other people are getting killed. Her cousins are getting killed. She feels bad. And so everybody was involved. But that would have been a horrible time to be alive, in my opinion. And then let's say Vietnam, you have 57,000. So we almost cut it by 90%, our casualties, fewer people involved, and less struggle domestically. And then like you flash forward today, I guess my point is what I like about today is it is an all volunteer army. I like serving with people that all sort of raise their hand.
They want to be there.
They want to be there in a time of war too. The majority of them enlisted after 9/11. And so I really like that aspect. I like that only 1% is bearing this burden right now. That means war is pretty, it's not bad. And so we don't have the struggle at home, because as a warfighter, you don't want to have that struggle at home. You want to go someplace else so that other people don't have to. And that's, the send me mentality.
Now, Sayre, we're going to get into the teamwork and cooperation type thing, because I definitely want to get into that as well, too. But could you ever see the draft coming back, especially if we got into a conflict with Russia or China? And you talked about World War III. Like, could you ever see that coming back? And how do you think that would go over in this country?
I don't think it could go over in this country anymore. It definitely did in the past and worked fine. I think to be honest, we're at an era where the government is going to have to incentivize it somehow. Because I just don't see that. I just see it backfiring in today's day and age. I just see that massively backfiring, and then that would cause resentment rather, because to me it's stick. And that goes back to cooperation teamwork, I guess we talk about. I'm more of a carrot guy. And I think I would rather want people to want to do it. And maybe that's my own naivety, but I think that we should have that mentality anyway, so that we don't get in wars dependent on hinging on a draft, because I don't like that idea either.
Are we done with the days of a big ground conflict? Are we more about just shooting bombs or missiles up the enemy's ass?
I've recently started to think about this, and I've been wondering if my sort of era, which I was in Afghanistan 2010 to 11,
You guys did a lot of urban warfare there, right? Like,
well, no, well, it was rural actually. I mean, where
okay.
I was, it was
that was
like,
Iraq when they were doing that in Fallujah and all that stuff, right?
exactly. And it's exactly. So my unit had 3 years in Iraq. They were there in the invasion. Then they were there a year. Take a year off, go for another 15 months, take a year off, go for another 12 months, take a year off, go to Afghanistan. And it was completely different. It's like the Middle Ages with motorcycles and cell phones. There's no running water, no electricity. It's dirt berm, like Pueblo style housing.
But it can get cold though, right?
In my region. So like if you've seen a lot of the movies and things like the Hollywood coming out of Afghanistan are not from my area. They're from like the East, Kabul, all the mountains and stuff. I was in Kandahar, which would be like Helmand for the Marines, and it's more like Arizona, flat. Not desert, but like almost like just dust, essentially. And they make their buildings they make bricks out of the dirt, water, and hay. And they sell
kind of like mud. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
You brought up Hollywood. I know that I'm all over the place, but I like to do these interviews where I like to think of stuff from a reply from my guest. Speaking of Hollywood, what movie got it the most right when it comes to war?
There is one.
Everybody says Saving Private Ryan, but I wanted to hear it from somebody.
Saving Private Ryan is no, I mean it's a great movie, but it's like I can't relate to that hellacious context. I think that Band of Brothers as a series in general about the military experience,
loved it.
Leadership is phenomenal, and so I think you just cannot go wrong with that.
I watched Zero Dark 30 last night. But I don't know how they could get that right because I'm sure they're not. I know they got the part with the helicopter. They had to destroy the one because they couldn't take off on that one or they had crashed it. But you don't know how much of that is Hollywood either.
I mean, that's true. I would say, at least on a contemporary basis, well, for one thing, Hurt Locker sucks. It's known as the worst.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. I mean, that's just hands down. But the one I was looking at is The Outpost. The vibes, the feelings I got sort of watching that movie, I found to be pretty damn legit.
Which one was The Outpost?
It's 2020, and it's a book. It's Afghan. It's a contemporary war. Ty Carter. It's got it's a Jake Tapper book actually that got made into a movie.
Yeah, there was another Afghan. Oh, the one with the guys riding the horses. I remember that one too.
I haven't watched that one. I bet it's cool though. But again, that's like the cool guy stuff. I'm just conventional. Those guys are like special forces, Green Beret, sort of Billy Badass type stuff. I'm just a ground pounder.
So you talk about cooperation. Can you give me a couple of examples of how cooperation you needed that in your group?
Yeah, I mean,
in military conflict.
Yeah, it's like everybody has a job to do, and every job is incredibly important. Because it's easy to be like, let's say the lowest rank is a private, and they get the shit job. Like quite literally, they're the lowest ranking on the totem pole, but I mean, they burn shit. Right? Well, guess what? When you have 40, 60 people in one area, that's a lot of shit. When we lived in a mud compound.
So you're talking about burning the latrines and stuff then, right?
We didn't know latrines. No, we lived in a mud hut that we sort of, where my area was the historical, it's where the Taliban movement started with Mullah Umar. And we basically crossed the line and essentially just conquered land there and then held it and fortified where we were and made an outpost on the frontier, essentially. And it was one of those mud hut buildings. And so we lived there for 6 months. And a part of that is like you're pulling security. So that's private. You're putting C-wire out, concertina wire, to get standoff because we have ID threats. And you can't let people get close to you. You can't trust them.
Because you don't want to like a random truck or something just driving up on you and blowing you up.
It happened to a sister company of ours a kilometer away and 6 people died. Those mud brick buildings fell. They're very heavy and they fell and crushed the people underneath who were sleeping. It was a bad day in December. And so you're always worried about the standoff. The guys are pulling guard and we're just shitting and pissing in holes. And then, and eventually we build a little latrine out of a double back-to-back shitter made out of plywood, with a hole cut in. And then we acquired some latrine porta potty seats from our battalion fob, right? And so you're constantly making your stuff better. But
so you're kind of upgrading.
My point is, exactly, you're constantly upgrading. Eventually there were satellites on there, and we had internet with sandbags and 50 cals and tow missiles and the works. But it was still a mud hut building. And my point is, those guys are doing all that work. And we're going on patrolling, going outside the wire. We are going on resupply missions, driving the trucks back and forth to get more material and things, and ammo. And we're cleaning our weapons and our vehicles and all that maintenance. And so, like, I don't care if you're an 18-year-old private that knows nothing. I'm air quoting. Yeah, but you know what? You got a very important job to do, and that is to stay in your lane, which it might just be a driver. That driver has to do all of their energy and focus on the task of driving because it's serious. They can't be worried about getting blown up by an IED or getting shot. The gunner, that's their job.
Yeah,
and the gunner can't be
you.
worried about driving.
Now, let me ask you, what would you guys control each other? Like, say if somebody was not doing their job or, not giving 100%, like, would you guys get in somebody's shit over that? Like, how does that work?
That's the art of leadership, where everybody's different, and emotional intelligence. You kind of have to know what your people need, how they're going to respond. Some people just, you have to have tact around because they're sensitive. Because nobody wants to look bad, especially if I'm a lieutenant and I have to correct a sergeant. I definitely don't want to do that in front of the privates because the sergeant's the fucking man. And so we can't make the fucking man look bad to his guys that he's responsible for. And so you got to pull them aside and make corrections. But there are times, though, where things could be really dire. And it's like, hey, look, I might have a squad that I would like to give people pretty free range, give them principles, just some general left and right limits, and then let them sort of take charge on, like, let's say the route. I'm not going to micromanage the exact route, but like, if you're going to go in areas where I think, like, we should not be going there, a break in the wall, there are certain environmental things that we knew were prone to IEDs. And that mostly means taking an easy path. So if I start seeing him take an easy path and he's not correcting it, I now have to step in.
It's almost like when you're out there trying to hunt in the wild, like when you set up snare traps and stuff like that. You look at the path like the rabbit. You'll be able to see the path he takes all the time, which is the easy path, and that's where people set up their traps.
Exactly. And they would actually goad us they put a break in a wall, and put it there, and so it's better to go over the wall. Don't go through a break. And they would put them behind at the corner of a wall. And what they would do is they would shoot at us while we were sort of walking in an open field so that we would then run to cover, which is an immediate reaction response. Well, now when you run to cover, because AK rounds aren't very accurate, but an IED is 100% accurate when it goes off. And so it makes you run to that position to hit that spot.
I want to ask you this, and I've talked about this. I got a military friend that fought in Afghanistan, and he had a interpreter, good friend, good person. I've actually had him on the show before, the interpreter. And I want because I've talked about this. I kind of think it was a raw deal that some of the interpreters got, because I really feel like if somebody in a country we're in a conflict with is willing to help our government, our military, help fight the war against their own people, I really do think that they should be able to be taken care of. They should be able to come here and get a chance to become an American citizen. And my friend was able to get him over here. And the guy's one of the hardest working men that I've met, very respectful, the type of people that you want here in our country. Did you ever have an interpreter that you were
really
working with?
I'm glad you asked that question, because it's really dear to my heart, is the plight of the Afghan interpreter, because I agree with you. And, my personal interpreter, he was my platoon guy that I had for a whole year, side by side. These interpreters, they live with you. They wear the U.S. uniform. We had to partner with the Afghan National Army on every single mission. We could never go alone. Always had to have them by our side, ideally at a 1-to-1 man-to-man ratio. And they don't speak English, and we don't speak Dari or Pashtun. And so, and I had to form these core bonds with the lieutenant. I was lieutenant. I had a peer lieutenant. He was fresh out of basic training, just a young guy, but he cared. And so you're drinking tea with them. You're going out. You got to shoot the enemy and fight. But like part of it also doing humanitarian missions and delivering rice and mosque refurbishment kits and talking to the elders, letting them know we're not the Soviets. There's lots of propaganda that goes on, and the locals have no idea who the hell we are, and the context. I mean, the majority of people where I was were illiterate. They don't have TVs, like I said, because they don't have electricity even. And so they just get told what the mullah and the elders say. And so all that cannot be done without an interpreter. And so, and what's important in all this is the Taliban hate them more than anybody.
So they're taking big risks. They consider them as traitors.
Well, think about it. They're, like I said, they don't even sleep. We sleep with that mud hut that I'm talking about that we fortified. We also had Afghan army guys pulling guard too up there. I mean, we all lived there all together. And so, but the interpreter lived with us troops, the U.S. guys. Again, like I said, wearing our uniform with our flag on it even, because they wanted to be us. They embodied us. They wanted to come to America. They know they speak our language. And so that's just an infidel at the highest level of a traitor.
Were they promised a chance to become citizens if they helped?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And in 2009, Congress authorized the special immigrant visa program for Iraqis and Afghan interpreter.
Then why was there such a big problem then?
Well, number one, it's immigration and paperwork and bureaucracy. And that's going to take forever no matter who you are. Well, not no matter who you are, but for most of us regular Joes. And it's a giant paperwork that is in English where these interpreters can speak colloquial slang. I mean, they're learning from the soldiers and us and Facebook and stuff. And so to do immigration paperwork on their own, good luck, because if you don't cross your T's or dot your I's, deny. If you're supervisor,
and I'm sure they're learning some bad slang with a bunch of military people.
I mean, slang, but they're hilarious. They have an interesting perspective, and that's what makes them unique to America. And that's why it's good to have them here, because they're leaving. Go look up in the World Report of where Afghanistan ranks on anything quality of life. I feel so terrible for people that are born there, because it's a tough life. It's completely foreign to what we know here.
And were you able to help your interpreter get here?
He's been here. So my first one has been here for more than 5 years. He's an American citizen by now. He's worked at the same place since. And he's now saving up to buy a semi-truck for like $100,000. That's his goal, because he knows how to make money and run these routes and get another buddy that's an Afghan, and they're just gonna take shifts and totally hard worker, like you were saying, and he's raising his 4 kids here, and they all know this story and the hard work that their dad did to make it here, and he's making it. And so he's here, but I have another one stranded in Turkey, paperwork problems still, but he made it out before the fall. And then most recently, I did have one during this Afghan crisis where he reached out to me in July, and Taliban had him on it. Everybody's at danger once they find out that you've been, especially in the summer. Things are changing now, but in the summer, Taliban, if they found out your interpreter, they're looking for him, they're going to kill you. They want to find them.
That's
and
sad.
As soon as and so like mine's been identified. So it's not just he's prone to being found out. He's on a hit list. And so that's already been going on.
I was going to bring that up. Like, could they have sleeper people here in the United States? And, they'd be like, hey, that interpreter, he was an infidel. You need to go after him.
That I do not think so. I don't actually think that would happen. I do think that the Taliban are, at the end of the day, internal to Afghanistan. They're not an international terrorist movement. Yeah, that was Al-Qaeda. Taliban are just, they're tribal people, kind of like the Comanches or something, that rule this land in between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and have for 5,000 years. Nomadic, tribal, hard, warrior-like, die for the cause people. I mean, they've been that way for 5,000 years. But it's all in Afghanistan. It's the pride of the Afghan. It's not coming to New York City, and whatever that means. I feel like this is just me. I don't know. I'm guessing. I would feel like someone who popped hot that might have been Taliban 10 years ago or something when the thing was hot and heavy. And if he made it to America, he'd probably be like, holy shit. And eyes might be opened in a way. It like as compared to being radicalized even more. You see, I feel like it would go the opposite direction. That's just my opinion.
You were talking about Vietnam earlier, and I maybe this is a dumb question, but in Vietnam you see all the movies about the hookers and stuff like that. Any females like because there are going to be a lot of single guys. That's a little bit of a different country, so I'm sure there wasn't like Afghan hookers coming up to GI soldiers and stuff like in Full Metal Jacket, Love You Long Time type stuff. Or did that happen? I could be completely wrong, and I had to ask.
No, great question. Zero.
Yeah, that's what I
mean,
thought.
I did not see a woman for 4 months probably in the entire country, like of Afghan descent. I mean, there were female women in the army, in the military, but like that includes like the Afghan National Army. That includes just me going out and visiting a village, or just me looking from our outpost with, let's say, binoculars and just looking around outside at my environment and seeing the daily life and people in cars. Like I did not see a woman for 3 to 4 months. It's completely different. To be a woman there.
All right. I got one other. I got one final question, but before we get into that, what's your favorite MRE and your worst MRE? Like, because like, are you guys still getting MREs and stuff?
We had MREs when I was in. Yeah, I mean, I think they've changed the menu since my day because they're just kind of rotating. But I will say this: I've always liked majority of them. I've never complained about an MRE. Well, except for I'll answer the worst is definitely omelet. Veggie omelet is gross. It's gross. It's a rubberized. It's exactly as it sounds. But some people like them. But my favorite though was probably spaghetti and meatballs, and I still like it cold with Tabasco.
Oh man,
listen,
I'm Florida white trash, so like I've eaten some pretty off the wall things. I just look at it as I need calories. It's like I hardly ever eat. I just recently had COVID, so I can't taste or smell anything. So I'm one to just see if I can eat the grossest stuff and see if I can choke it down now.
Yeah, well, not the grossest stuff, but now I'm just chicken, rice, and like broccoli, the boring stuff.
Yeah. Eat cardboard. I could be eating cardboard and really wouldn't.
And just get your veggies in.
I talked about a story a couple of weeks ago, and this will be the final question. I want to get your opinion. They've been going through scenarios in case, because our country politically is so divided right now. You had the attacks on January 6th coming up real soon. It's going to be the 1-year anniversary. And they're running scenarios to find out, just in case the military ever splintered or went off on their own. Do you think that's even a possibility?
I do not think it's a possibility. I think could it turn into that over time as the generations progress? Sure, I think so. Yeah, but as the current outfit and composition of the generations that I because I may not be there, but I'm still with and amongst many. I just could not fathom that happening. In my opinion,
I don't either, but because everybody with the political divide now, everybody's like, oh, we're gonna have another civil war. Let's take back the country. And I was like, no, you don't want that. Because think about this. It's not impressive, but the numbers are staggering. The Civil War is I think is the deadliest conflict that's involved either, American citizens and stuff. And that was all done with not even having automatic weapons. What do you think would happen in the United States if something like that happened? It would go through the roof, wouldn't it?
Horrible. And, and I know, I'm real salty about all the tough guys that are all, you see them on TV and they're all Mr. Gun Heavy with their pouches and their gear and their flags. And, majority of them never freaking served. And we've had 20 years to go get some. ISIS or Saddam or Al-Qaeda or Taliban or Uday or Qusay or Al-Shabaab. I mean, there's been plenty of opportunities to go get some, and they didn't. And now I've just seen a lot of people running their mouths, and it's frustrating to see as a guy that sort of went overseas.
Yeah. Sayre, before I let you go, tell people once again, and don't log off after we get done with the interview. I got to run something by you, but tell people how they can check out all the content that you're putting out.
Yeah, Spotify or just Apple Podcasts, probably the easiest way. It would be War Stories with Preston and Sayre, Sayre, and YouTube as well. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We're mostly doing the podcast thing and having a good time with it.
Well, Sayre, I hope you enjoyed this interview. I know that I did, and I'm very grateful for you giving me the time.
Yeah, appreciate it. I enjoyed it, and thanks for having me on.
And that's the show for today. Thanks for listening to the Tuddle Daily Podcast. Hey, don't be a dickhead. Do us a favor. Like, share, and subscribe to the show. Also, check out the Tuddle category at 315live.com. The Tuddle Daily Podcast is brought to you by Starfire Transport, StitchYouUp.com, and PocketPairClub.com. Special thanks to show producer Vulture and co-host Sirach. Show voiceover service is brought to you by jcvoiceover.com and The Little Cheese Show. Download and subscribe to The Little Cheese Show everywhere podcasts are found. If you want to help support the show, go to paypal.me/TuddleOnTheRadio. You have something you want to say? Tuddle@gmail.com or leave a voicemail at 407-270-3044. To follow all Tuddle social media, go to Tuddle.net. That's Tuddle with 2Ds.net. Thanks again for all your support, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Tuddle Daily Podcast.
I get ignorant in normal situations.
What you mean?
What the fuck you mean?
What are you talking about?
Nigga, what the fuck is you talking about?
Oh, shit!